Hi everyone, and welcome to another year of conferences hosted by SPN. We have got some great content for our Circular Economy conference, and I would like to start off with Stephanie and Matt from Sealed Air, who will be talking to us about the challenges of the circular economy for Sealed Air's flexible plastics.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name's Stephanie Poole, and this is my comrade Matthew Baldock, or Matt as we call him, and we work for the business development team for Sealed Air. And we'd just like to spend a few minutes today talking about the challenges of the circular economy for Sealed Air's flexible plastics. So just to give you a little bit of a background about Sealed Air, so we sell a wide range of packaging materials into a number of different food markets. And the purpose of the materials is really that we want to extend shelf life and reduce food waste. You'll see that our products within fresh meat, smoked and processed, poultry, dairy are the main industries that we would be supplying into. And the actual carbon footprint for the products that we're manufacturing are very low compared with the actual products that we're wrapping.
So I guess we're here today to discuss why all this stuff is important. What are the issues and how do we solve these issues? So no mean feat in itself.
So Matt, shall we kick off with a bit of why on this?
We can try. I mean, let's look at these four interlinked global sustainability imperatives. It's not just about the circular economy, of course. There's plenty of other issues that require balance. Food waste, for example, that needs massive reduction. Did you know food waste was a country we're the third biggest polluter on Earth?
Terrifying.
Awful. Climate change clearly is happening all around us, which is never a good thing, no matter what the deniers say. And resource depletion. Again, we see a lot about reduction, all for good cause. And as Steph previously explained, there's a reason why we're doing it too. So
it's really interesting that we look at those because it's really important that we just don't focus on one. So like say resource depletion, we have if we're going to do that to the expense of increasing food waste, you've just said it represents the third biggest country in terms of food usage. So we need to really balance those four so that we make sure that ultimately we do leave the world in a better place than we found it for our children. So if we just collect all of our household waste that we have at the moment, Matt, surely that just, if we stick it into mechanical recycling, that solves the problem, doesn't it?
Pull the other one. No way.
So why not? So what's the issue with that?
Let's take a look at this. Even if there was a plentiful supply of mechanically recycled, food-approved monopolymers, you must understand, not all polyethylenes are the same.
Good
and check out these stats. There's 119 variants of polyethylene for food packaging available in the UK from Dow alone. And some of these numbers are staggering. 28 different grades for meats and cheese. Unbelievable. Looking at SABIC, they have 29 different grades of LDPE, 27 grades of LDPE, 12 grades of HDPE, 7 grades of polypropylene. I mean, come on, and check out all the different variabilities and variables there.
So why do we need all those different grades then?
Everything has a specific purpose. I mean, it's not just about the material, it's about how you pack. What are you using it for? How fast do you want to run? You know, there's so many variables which we as an industry has obviously influenced over time and still requires that top end performance.
So I guess that if we just stick mechanically recycled material in, then we lose all of the key properties that we're trying to deliver in packaging then.
Absolutely. We can't have that, can we?
No, we can't. We definitely can't. At Sealed Air, we've sort of coined a phrase called essential food packaging. So we don't want to be seen as being single-use packaging, although the product at the moment might only be used once. But this is why it's so important that we create a circular economy. Our products are there to protect the food and reduce food waste, and we want to make them as thin as possible so that we can reuse the amount of oil that's needed to be pulled out of the ground. And I think it's clear that these products don't actually get into the sea and the oceans and are littered, because generally they're used in the home and are disposed of responsibly. When you look at the whole of the European market, and generally when we're looking at problem solving, we use the 80-20 rule, so that if you can solve 80% of the problem, then you can sort of normally live with the 20%. When you actually look at the amount of plastic packaging that we use, it moves to a 98-2 rule. So a lot of the regulations that are coming in and the drive for recyclability solve 98% of the problem, but we, in our little bit up in the top right hand corner, our essential food packaging represents about 2% of all the plastics on the market, and at the moment the legislation is trying to push away from this area. So this is really, I guess, this is what the problem is, and we need to find how we're going to solve it.
So I guess where we sit with essential food packaging, it's quite clever plastics then. It's not like a carrier bag.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. So we need to find different ways of recycling then, and not be dependent on mechanical recycling. Are there any new technologies coming along that we should be investigating more?
Well, there's advanced recycling, which continues to advance at a rapid rate. Also known as chemical recycling, although that name doesn't really strike as much of a chord as advanced.
And how will that help us in our part of the industry with flexible plastics?
Well, we need food grade resource, right?
We do.
It has to be food grade. We can't just keep downcycling beyond reproach. We need to take waste plastics. We need to get it back into its oil form.
Yeah.
And then be reused inside the food industry. We want circularity.
Yep.
One of the 4 into the global sustainability imperatives. But true circularity, because recycling is a misleading term at times, you know.
So should we have a look at an example of where we've already had a bit of a go at this?
Go on then, Steph. What have we got?
So a couple of years ago, we did a project working with Tesco and taking some of their front of store waste and reprocessing with a company called Plastic Energy, who are already working on advanced recycling. And then going around the circular economy, we used SABIC as a petrochemical provider who provided resin into Sealed Air. And then we were able to produce a film that could go to Bradbury's, who was supplying cheese, back into Tesco. And it was the first example in the world of putting this recycled content back into thin, flexible materials. And we were really trying to show leadership in this area, because we need a huge amount of investment in the technology to make sure that we have sufficient resins to do this in the future.
So that's amazing. Yes, can you put any type of plastic through this process?
Not everything. There are some restrictions in terms of the mix of plastics that you can put through, but it's a lot more tolerant than mechanical. And one of the really big benefits is that you can put food residues into there, which is much more difficult to do than in mechanical recycling. So you can see from this diagram that mechanical really is all about taking the polyolefins, so the PEs and PPs back, and it will tolerate a small amount of things like EVOH, but we have to keep the amount down, and it really doesn't like food contamination. Whereas if you can see pyrolysis, which is one of the names or one of the processes for advanced recycling, you can put more products in and just minimise the amount of level, which if you take a bale of plastics, you'll find that naturally anyway within the bale.
It's amazing to see this progress. But, you know, what does the carbon footprint look like?
Well, that's a very good question, Matt. because we always have to be conscious of that. At the moment, there's been some studies done, and there's more studies being done at the moment from some of the different universities, but it does look as though the carbon footprint from pyrolysis is looking as though it's a little bit higher than it is for mechanical, but we have to think about what's the output that you get in terms of the quality of the material that comes out. And as you said, you know, we can get back to a virgin quality material that can be used back into food. And it's expected that as the technology improves, that the carbon footprint will become closer to mechanical in the future.
Okay, so the footprint's higher than mechanical, but the product coming from it is more valuable.
Yeah, exactly. And there are more studies underway, as I said, and hopefully we'll get much more verification of this data as we go through. I think it's really key that we don't think about that mechanical and chemical are trying to compete with each other. We need both of these technologies because there's lots of places that we can use mechanically recovered material, but very specifically for food plastics, we need to make sure that we have this advanced recycled material coming through in the future. And there was a study back in 2018 by McKinsey, and they are actually predicting that we're going to continue to increase the use of our oil, virgin oil, let's say, until 2040. So I think it's incumbent on all of us to try and improve on that number and bring it forward so that we actually start to reduce our usage before that time. But you can see from this chart that we need huge investment in an infrastructure, both in mechanical and in chemical recycling. And as I said, let's not think about them as being in competition with each other. They're complementary technologies, and we need both. Most of the plastics, the thin plastics that we have today, are going into incineration, and we have to stop that from happening. We have to keep the molecules in play.
There's a lot going on there and a lot of insight shared. So I guess to conclude, right, flexible packaging plays an essential role. Flexible plastic packaging plays an essential role and tries to tackle resource depletion, food waste, climate change. And of course, as you've been explaining, making everything fit the mechanical recycling infrastructure, it doesn't make sense, right?
No.
Because we've covered down cycling, which isn't helpful. But again, touching on those global imperatives, it doesn't really support any of them on its own.
Mm-hmm.
But it does complement advanced recycling, you know, that they must coexist, and they both have different parts to play within our infrastructure, which is fair. And actually, we need to focus a lot more on advanced because it's providing that high quality, virgin grade recycled content with a reduced carbon footprint into the packaging solutions we know and love. And actually, when you think about it, the LCA and the carbon footprint reading, although higher than mechanical, actually, when you look at yield, offers that reduction. So that, I guess, that's really important. Mm-hmm. But you've alluded to the fact there's a massive deficit in capacity. Mm-hmm. So investment urgently needed. There's a lot of investment going on, which is great.
Yep.
But certainly that 2040 figure of when we'll start to phase out virgin usage is unacceptable, frankly.
Yeah, and quite scary, really.
Mm.
So shall we finish off with a nice little video, Game of Thrones style, which demonstrates our circular project that we talked about previously?
A Lannister always pays his debts. Thanks so much for listening to us witter on about the circular economy. Serious topic, serious answers. But please do get in touch if you want to know more. We're here to help. And actually, it's not just for our benefit, it's for everyone. So we'll see you really soon.
Thank you very much.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Matt and Steph. It's great to see what Sealed Air are doing to combat these challenges. Next, we will hear from Sanna at Pulpac, who will be speaking about the impact and development of dry moulded fibre.
Hi, my name is Sanna. I'm Chief Commercial Officer here at Pulpac, and I'm very glad to be here at the Sustainable Packaging News to let you in on Pulpac and what we are doing. To take it from the beginning, or to set the scene, so Pulpac was originally founded because we wanted to play a part in saving the climate. We have a vision for the impact that we would like to do with this technology. It is meant for great things. So everyone here knows, of course, that the climate threat, that's real. And unfortunately, we have to give it some credit, because the benefit is that it gave us the idea of the development of dry molded fiber. In just few years, our goal is to have replaced 1 million tons of plastic, which preserves all the way of 5 million tons of CO2 equivalent, and also preserves water, because this is also scarce resources. And with the amount of tonnage of plastic we can reduce, it equals 1 billion liters of water. Pulpac was founded back in 2018. We are based in Gothenburg in Sweden. And again, the whole idea is to contribute to a better planet. We have, during these years, we have gone from 6 employees up to over 100. We have gone from 200,000 euros in investment to over 40 millions. And we are backed by industry leaders as investors, believing in the technology and what we are doing. We are on the scale of scaling this. So we have 10 plus licensees already all over the world, and we are building an extensive partner network around the world to support this technology and to be able to then replace the single-use plastic as we would like to do. I mean, we know this, of course, but just to set the scene, during the 50s, plastic became the material for the future. It's offered never before seen possibilities to preserve food and to use in almost any area. But again, then we saw the drawbacks of the plastic. And today we need to see how can we replace this by, of course, providing the speed and the high output and the cost efficiency that actually plastics gives us. We sit here with a global consumption with the plastic producers are increasing. And this is not, again, significant slowing down. We know that just in Europe, only 30% of the yearly production gets collected of plastic or recycled. So the remaining then 70% of this plastic that we are producing are getting to waste. So we know that the EU Commission study from 2018 shows that plastics alone, especially from single-use products, account for mind-blowing 85% of the world's marine litter. Together with that, we also know that there will be a movement. So there are business incentives to actually do the replacement. And that's good, because we need this to drive the change that we would like to be a part of. We know that the movement from plastic packaging to fiber packaging, it's a business of a total value of $20 billion until 2040. So the highlights here is that we need change, and also we see the potential in doing more sustainable solution. And we have the solution in some sense. I mean, the alternative to plastic was always fiber. Fiber is a material that we see have lower environmental impact, and it is available right now. Dry molded fiber then uses the generic pulp that is available almost anywhere, and we can do more or less any three-dimensional packaging product with this technology. So we based our technology of well-proven systems that makes the improvement go fast, because again, speed here is important. It's unmatched in some sense in the design possibility that we can do compared to traditional fiber forming, for example, and it also matches the plastic process on both price and I would say cycle time. So forming fiber into packaging using water, I mean, that's a tried and well-known technology. It's true, you can do that today. But when you rely on water use, you increase the environmental and also then the social impact. We know that fiber-based packaging is already a vital contribution to the circular economy. We know that according to Eurostat, fiber-based packaging has the highest recycle rate in volume, above other materials such as metal and glass, or even plastic, of course. And research shows that the European consumers prefer actually paper and cardboard packaging because of its sustainable attributes. We know, of course, that all the data and all the new technology and the new product that we set on the market, of course, needs to make sure that we are keeping true to the sustainability. So also for us, of course, when developing product, the LCA is key. Because again, we would like to make sure that we can put new products on the market that actually make good for the climate. So from all the products that we have developed at Pulpac, we have chosen some and done third-party validation, research and LCA on dry molded fiber. The results that we can see here on the screen are based on our spoon. And according to industry experts and standards, we know that above 90% yield is seen as very good when we are talking about recyclability. The results you can see here confirms that the spoons are biodegradable, they have excellent recyclability, and the climate impact is 2.5 grams CO2 equivalent per spoons. As a comparison, LCA studies on plastic spoons or polypropylene cutlery have with basically the similar weight was about 15 grams CO2 equivalent per spoons, or 4.2 kilograms CO2 equivalent per kilo product. So the main climate impact of dry molded fiber cutlery comes from the production of the input material fluff, and the actually production method of dry molding fiber contributes to basically 7% of the climate impact. But moving forward then a little bit to what is the technology and how does it work? To start with, you have the raw material. That is generic available material all over the world. So it should be that, so it's easy to get started with. The pulp on the first step, then in the production machine, are fed into a mill where we mechanically separate the fiber and lay down the fiber by using air. This is also a well-known technology in some sense in the industry, but we have re-engineered it to fit for this purpose. So the carrier of the fiber in our technology is air, not water. And in the middle section, you can add tissue, you can add functional barriers, and you can have color and prints, for example, to make sure that you are producing a product that makes sense, both of course from performing perspective, but also of course from consumer experience. And in the last step, you're pressing the part, so basically rebonding the fibers by using heat and pressure. And they are then dry and ready to be taken out from the press, packed and stacked directly afterwards. The skeleton, as you can see in the movie as well, that is left when the products are pressed, that is taken back to the mill. So we are recycling all the material, giving us a high material utilization and again, a lot of effectivities. When it comes to energy output or energy usage are low, and of course no excessive water consumption. The film here that you can see shows one of our pioneering licensees that have set up their own dry molded fiber line in France. Abar is a family-owned plastic converters that early on identified that the shift towards fiber-based packaging was needed. So they invested in this standardized modular machine and or dry molded fiber machine platform, and which is then developed, delivered and warranted by our turnkey machine providers Tech Tribe. And they are right now ramping up the production, focusing on innovation in mold decorated products, like lid, for example, for the dairy industry. We know that Pulpac allowing the market to balance functionality with cost and impact for each solution. We also know the regulation prohibits dangerous material. And this is, of course, something that we welcome. At Pulpac, we welcome, of course, the PPWR efforts to ban PFAS and PBA for food waste, water contact. They are chemicals prone to long-term contamination throughout the ecosystem with significant health risk. So, fortunately, the packaging industry is pushing for circularity, a movement away from non-sustainable chemical with massive investment into new technology. And this is good. But the sheer number of packaging solutions and the features needed makes case-by-case product legislation very challenging, of course. We need to look again at the bigger picture to make sure that we are doing the right thing in all the different aspects. So, especially in convenience product and food packaging, we see that recycling of a renewable fiber has a system benefit over often fossil-based plastic reuse items in terms of achieving cost efficiency, good hygiene, and product shelf life at a low impact. So, recycled fiber packaging uses existing infrastructure for paper waste, and the environmental gains from replacing single-use plastic, such as lower CO2 footprint, with recyclable products in fiber. As a leader in our sustainable packaging, Pulpac highlights dry molded fiber as a novel technology, solving critical challenge, I would say, for circularity. Dry molded fiber offers a solution that enhances sustainability without compromising consumers' convenience or manufacturing cost. For example, I would say Pulpac's standardized product for food service can enter an existing paper waste stream where fibers may be recycled up to 25 times. If the product then is misplaced, they will biodegrade. We look forward to contributing to positive legislation outcome, spearheading sustainability in packaging via innovation, and ensuring a technology agnostic approach for fair competition that aligns with environmental goals, while of course and also addressing the dynamic needs for industries, for the consumers, for their all best interests. We said it before, but time is ticking. There is a massive demand for innovation and responsible produced packaging solution. And of course, market leverage if you can act fast and set up a production line today. So to help you cater to the market needs, we offer a wide range of market-ready product ready for manufacturing. So again, finding the right material to the right product is key to reach circularity within the packaging value chain. We as Pulpac has the ability to help you all the way from design ideas to final products, so you can have that in place on your market. And that switch from plastic to dried molded fibers is rarely a one-to-one translation. So again, we carry out application development to make sure that we find the right solution for your product. So, as talked about, we are a technology provider at Pulpac of dry molded fiber. We are aiming to replace single-use plastic at scale. We have a value chain with machine suppliers, with the material providers and bearer providers backing us and ready to engage with converters and with brand owners that would like to do the shift. And we will support you all the way. Again, thank you for the invitation and for having us here. And if you have any more questions, just let us know.
Thank you, Sanna. A great video with some good points about how to replace single-use plastics. Our third video is by Filipe at CIRCPACK. He will be informing us on extended producer responsibility and its development status as a contributor to circular economy.
Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Filipe Vieira de Castro. I'm an international analyst at CIRCPACK, and today we're going to explore what extended producer responsibility is, how it seeks to facilitate sustainable circular economies, and its differences around the world. Whether you're here to learn something new, find solutions, or simply curious, I hope you'll find this session valuable. Let's get started by quickly introducing CIRCPACK. We are an independent international consultant operating around the core of enabling the recyclability and otherwise circularity of packaging. We do that by combining theoretical expertise with operational proof and know-how from a perspective of material agnosticity. I mean that in the sense that when we assess a packaging format, whether for its performance or recycling, or both, we take a look at the product characteristics in situ and in context. We don't choose any materials over other. Instead, we really, really look at the materials that are best for a specific situation and in a specific place. We overall believe that brand owners and packaging companies, as well as consumers, benefit the most from harmonization and cross-country alignment. And being a part of the broader Veolia group really provides us with an international presence and, most importantly, access to local knowledge and operational industrial facilities so that we can best enable our different business units. Today, we will be especially focusing on our third, which is, basically a version of our country reports and recycling country reports platform, which focuses on the world of recycling and extended producer responsibility in 71 countries. However, we also do quite a bit of work pertaining to testing the recyclability of packaging and then assessing it and applying certifications, but also helping our customers to improve that recyclability. On top of this, we have freely available design guidelines and put quite some time into providing masterclasses on these different topics, but then also recycling intelligence in the form of in-depth studies or consulting projects. But today, we're really here to focus on extended producer responsibility and its impact on the circular economy. To quickly introduce EPR, one could describe it as a transformative policy approach designed to shift the environmental accountability of product packaging from consumers and often municipalities to producers themselves. It generally does this by placing the onus of post-consumer packaging waste management, including collection, sorting, and recycling, directly on the shoulders of manufacturers and distributors. Ultimately, EPR aims to incentivize the design of more sustainable packaging, reduce waste produced by that packaging, and promote a circular economy. Today, we're really going to focus on the concept of EPR, the legislation that supports it, various implementations, and again, its impact on a circular economy. Now, I'd like to first start out with really focusing on the primary aspects of packaging EPR, and we really identify 5. The first of that is, of course, the responsibility for the management of material which is placed on the market. That's often included manufacturers, brand owners, and importers, and it's generally requiring them to be legally obligated to manage the entire life cycle of the packaging that they place on the market. EPR often generally requires as well that producers establish and fund systems for collecting, recycling, sorting, and otherwise managing the packaging waste generated by their products. And it sets obligations for the costs associated with managing packaging waste, including the collection, transportation, recycling, and again, the proper disposal of these formats. It typically requires producers to report on their efforts and ultimately incentivizes producers to design packaging that is more environmentally friendly, reusable, or recyclable to reduce the environmental impacts of their products. And all of this works towards that goal of enabling a circular economy. I always like to start with this high-level map of EPR around the world. You'll notice here in green that represents countries where EPR for packaging is in place, or provinces and states in the case of Canada and the United States. Yellow, of course, under development, orange emerging, red, none. You'll notice, of course, that Europe is really the epicenter of EPR. And you'll notice as well that the entirety of the European Union has extended producer responsibility in place, whereas Switzerland does not, and the United Kingdom, somewhat famously at this point, is currently developing an EPR system. But what do all of these countries in green have in common? Well, that's very often levies, taxes, and fees. That's how extended producer responsibility is commonly managed, those being fees associated with placing product packaging on the market. But ultimately, the purpose of these levies is really to finance recycling. And this financing often supports different segments of the value chain, including collection, sorting, recycling. But as a general rule, countries that have implemented EPR systems tend to possess more advanced versions of those systems. That can include recycling programs, but also technologies. And really, overall, the distribution and calculation of these funds can vary depending on the country, but they really seek to improve the economic value in the materials which are placed on the market. So you really need EPR to facilitate things like collection and sorting, which you can see as a proportion of the €1 here, make up 79 cents or 79% of the total euro, which is paid by the producer to put packaging on the market. You see some small supporting cents going towards things like the actual recycling process and also the energy recovery process. And then, of course, the overhead, such as the support of this local French producer responsibility organization, but then also overall R&D and awareness raising. Well, what facilitates those fees? Those are generally going to be the underlying legal frameworks. All countries that are looking to facilitate or have facilitated some sort of a formal EPR system have established a form of baseline legislation. Common examples of this legislation include some version of the polluter pays principle, an established waste hierarchy, that being really focusing on recycling and recovering packaging waste as opposed to landfilling or incinerating it, establishing formal waste disposal rules, and really setting a cardinal direction on a country or region level toward the direction of sustainable development. Europe, of course, is really a leader in these topics. They established the Waste Framework Directive in 2008, which introduced eco-modulation, which is really the focusing of prioritizing sustainable materials. It formalized the European waste hierarchy, and it also introduced waste prevention measures. It built upon this with the Packaging Waste Directive, which really required an EPR presence for packaging in European countries. It's really why that map is so green in Europe. It also sets standards for reporting on those obligations and established recycling targets for primary material groups. It also sets the baseline for the legislation, which you've by no doubt heard of at this point, which is the Packaging Waste Regulation. But in the meantime, it also set an EPR presence for single-use plastics, banned some single-use plastics, and then set recycling targets. But like I mentioned, the Packaging Waste Regulation is probably what you've heard of at this point. First and foremost, it is a move from a directive to a regulation. And in this context, a regulation serves to regulate a system, whereas a directive serves to direct a system. In effect, the directive allowed for a certain amount of local variety, whereas the regulation is intended to minimize this variety and harmonize systems across the EU. As such, it reestablishes a baseline. The previous Packaging Waste Directive lays down measures to prevent the production of and to promote the reuse of packaging. However, the PPWR builds upon this PPWD and is likely to be confirmed before June of 2024. It establishes several requirements which are specific to different goals of the European Union. These include new EU waste prevention targets set on a 2018 baseline, which is quite important because the prevention targets need to decrease from that baseline of 2018 waste production. But it also establishes obligatory nation-level deposit return schemes unless specific collection criteria are met. It establishes, once again, this topic of harmonization and a classification of design for recycling criteria, and establishes mandatory packaging minimization requirements. However, in the context of circularity, it's really, again, this harmonization classification of design for recycling criteria that is going to have the largest impact. Now, what does this look like? Within the legislation as it stands, we have an impression of a 5-level categorization set in place by the European Union. And this is really seeking to enable circularity. You see there that the highest score, A, fully compatible, generates a secondary raw material scheme, which can feed a closed loop of the same quality. And that's quite important because as we work down the list to minor recyclability issues, some recyclability issues, overall, these materials are less and less applicable for use in a circular economy. And the EU is really directly trying to focus on that. Now, how do we assess this scoring? We'll really look at a broad variety of areas of your packaging. These can be the colors of your formats, the adhesives used in your formats, any barriers or coatings, labels, sleeves, additives that enable these, but also physical characteristics, including the ease of emptying, also with the materials contained in the package of formats, but also the ease of dismantling and whether or not there are any loose parts. You might think that this is overly granular, but in circular systems, we need to be concerned about the buildup of materials which negatively affect recycling processes. This is a complex topic. In our own certification business, we've helped multiple brand owners identify materials which were incorrectly categorized as recyclable by their own suppliers. And this is really what extended producers' responsibility schemes are working to manage within Europe, but also around the world. Around the world, once again, extended producer responsibility is always going to be established by local legislation. It's managed at the government, nonprofit, or private level, and it regulates and/or coordinates the local recycling environments. I'm going to give a few examples of different types of extended producer responsibility schemes here. For example, we have for-profit and non-profit schemes. We have competitive schemes, and we have schemes which enable a monopoly. We have schemes which focus exclusively on household packaging waste or on household and business-to-business packaging waste. And we also have schemes which apply a different level of responsibility between producers and municipalities. Sweden here, for example, has an asterisk because it just changed its scheme to put everything on the producer focus, but it previously did quite a split, and that was very unique. However, focusing once again in Europe, if we think back to that legislation and its implication on the systems, the European Union sets requirements, well, in the context of the packaging waste regulations, on and through which the national environmental ministries need to facilitate the improvement and the establishment of PROs. Those PROs are producer responsibility organizations, but they're not always necessary. Some choose to apply directly rules onto the producers and importers in those countries. And if we apply some countries here to show you what this might look like, the Dutch has a monopolistic system which goes through one PRO and applies rules to producers and importers. The Germans have a competitive system, and the Danes apply this directly through the environmental ministry. To zoom in to the Netherlands and Denmark, we have here a good example of this word, eco-modulation, which keeps on coming up. And you can see really that some formats which are more difficult to recycle, for example, plastics versus paper and cardboard, are much more expensive to place on the market than in other countries. In the Netherlands here, we see quite a high rate, one of the highest in Europe for different plastic packaging formats. But you also see there in Denmark that the glass and plastic bottles or metal cans are much cheaper to put on the market than, for example, plastic bags. If we apply these to two specific packaging formats, so for example, a beverage carton and a flexible pouch, you'll notice that in almost all cases, the flexible pouch, being the one that is more difficult to recycle, is going to be the one that costs more to place on the market. And these numbers here are an estimate based on about 1,000 units, which you would place on the market. And this is really an example of how extended producer responsibility looks to facilitate a circular economy, because we want to recommend materials which fit better into existing recycling systems, as opposed to those which are more difficult to recycle. There are, of course, levels of eco-modulation, and to really set a definition here, the first level would be the promotion of packaging minimization, because eco-modulation refers to either a system like this or a pricing mechanism that adjusts fees and taxes or charges based on environmental or ecological criteria. The purpose of eco-modulation is really to incentivize environmentally responsible behavior and discourage actions that have a negative impact on the environment. In the Netherlands, we just saw that example of rigid and flexible packaging. And in France, we have a good example of just labeling your packaging for the proper disposal. That provides you then with a bonus, which is then the third tier here of eco-modulation. So we have a lot of different tools through which we can do this. Ultimately, however, those labeling schemes, such as the French scheme, which provides a bonus, really work hand in hand with the facilitation of separate collection, which is very common in systems with extended producer responsibility. Labeling really supports the use of separate collection systems by consumers. And you can see here a few different local labels. This is in the United Kingdom, set forth by OPRL. This is in South Korea. And this is then, of course, in the United States. Overall, there are many different implications on a circular economy around the world. And extended producer responsibility really seeks to enable this topic. I'm going to focus on 4 high-level ideas here and dive into them a little bit further. The first of those is that extended producer responsibility increases recycling rates locally. And that's really driven by packaging innovation, but very, very much stimulating the secondary materials market. And it does that by simply increasing the supply via recycling and demand via rules of recyclable materials. This results in enhancing recycling infrastructure by establishing a need for advanced sorting and recycling, which gets those materials on the market. This is, for example, one of the reasons why chemical recycling is being focused on so much in countries like France, who see it as really a good solution for their, for example, polyethylene, flexible recycling. But these increased recycling rates are also the result of consumer education and engagement. And that really results in fostering greater awareness and participation by the consumer. The second high-level point here is the formalization and recognition of recycling systems. It not only reflects the true cost of packaging by introducing mechanisms for pricing environmental impact and material management also locally, but the legal frameworks and policy incentives really seek to hold this up, and they incentivize that sustainable packaging design I mentioned on the last slide, but also by rewarding actors who meet recycling targets via those bonuses or penalty schemes. But it also, zooming out outside of Europe, includes the informal sector in these systems via formal employment opportunities and safety systems for otherwise, systems which were highly informal and often not regulated. It also standardizes the materials and practices in a specific country, and it develops those standards for packaging materials not only to ensure compatibility with local recycling infrastructure, but to ensure growth within that local recycling infrastructure. And the third, and almost most important, is really the promotion of collaborative and otherwise closed-loop systems. Extended producer responsibility enables a system which requires the tracking of movement and the transformation of materials within a supply chain. It requires discussions between producers, recyclers, and local governments to develop not only circular, but fair packaging solutions for all 3 of those stakeholders and all the other ones not mentioned. It also really supports the integration of secondary systems like deposit return schemes, which are some of the most effective closed-loop systems which we have currently available, especially for material types like PET or aluminium. And ultimately, it enables the material recovery and reuse of the packaging materials which we place on the market. And it does that by ensuring that valuable materials are not lost to landfill, but instead re-enter production recycles in the best way possible. And that finalizes my presentation for today. This was quite a bit of information, so my email is on the slide. Please feel free to send me a message if you have any other questions or concerns or any discussions you would like to have. I know this was quite a bit of information, but it's tough to talk about topics that have so many different externalities in such a short period of time. I hope that you learned something. I hope that this was entertaining for you. And I'd like to thank the Sustainable Packaging News team for putting this together. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thanks, Filipe. It's great to see what is happening globally to improve circular economy. Next up is Franciele from Gruppo Boticaro, who will be talking about the role of perfume refills in the circular economy.
My name is Franciele Saorin. I currently work as a packaging scientist at Gruppo Boticaro, with a focus on medium and long-term disruptive innovation for fragrance, personal care, and cosmetics packaging. And today I am here to talk about the role of perfume refills in the circular economy. Starting, I'd like to quickly introduce Grupo Boticário. From a small compounding pharmacy to the biggest cosmetic franchise on the planet. We are a 9-brand group and we are present in more than 50 countries and 66,000 third-party points of sales, such as pharmacies and perfume stores. We have more than 4,000 physical stores across Brazil, e-commerce and millions of resellers, besides the exclusive distribution of products known worldwide. We are more than 15,000 direct employees, united for a purpose. We have a plan we are doing it together with courage, daring, and resilience, respecting people, nature, and their legacies, because that's how we build the best and the largest beauty ecosystem for the world. In 2023, Grupo Boticário was recognized by the Dow Jones Sustainability Index as the third most sustainable cosmetics company in the world. The company achieved historical results by rising 3 positions in the ranking compared to the previous year in personal products category. With sustainability at the company's core, Grupo Boticário is increasingly aligning its business strategy with its climate agenda. Our partner Aptar is a global company with multiple packaging solutions that meet all the needs of a home. Make packaging for home care, personal care, food, pharma, and beauty products. Aptar is a design and innovation-oriented company with several patents developed, has a broad portfolio of technologies such as pumps, overcaps, airless, pressurized, and maintains centers of expertise spread around the world, with partnerships with startups and innovation centers. In addition to invest in the purchase of companies that add to the business, such as BTY, Rebow, Fusion, and others. Moving on to the next slide. Before talking about the project itself, it's important to note that the fragrance market is projected to generate a revenue of almost $60 billion worldwide in 2024, with Brazil ranking second, only behind the United States. In this vast market, which moves billions of units annually, the issue of post-consumer packaging weighs heavily. With brand owners increasingly prioritizing sustainability, we observe a rising trend in in-store refilling initiatives, not only for perfumes, but also for personal care products, such as liquid soaps and bar lotions, as you can see in the examples showed in this slide. Despite the regulatory restrictions from the Brazilian Health Regulatory Agency, Anvisa, prohibiting the refill of cosmetic products in Brazilian stores, but looking to the future, Grupo Boticário started in 2019 a fragrance refill project. The challenge was to find a technology enabling perfume bottle refilling without removing the snap-on pump. Alongside a global survey of existing technologies and a creative challenge launched for designers and engineers, the best solutions underwent qualitative research for consumer, consultant, and reseller evaluation. We used a patent technology called RT-Plug. It's developed by Techniplas and licensed by Aptar in Latin America, which deals with the problem of setting pumps, making it possible to fill in all types of bottles, even those with a pump cannot be unscrewed. A face-to-face demonstration of the equipment operation was carried out with 81 individuals, men and women, aged 18 to 64, being 29 consumers, 38 resellers, and 14 consultants. In the consumers demonstration, the overall pleasantness before demonstration was 86%, while 10% of respondents were neutral and 3% rejected the equipment. After the demonstration, the overall pleasantness increased to 90% and neutrality decreased to 7%. While the rejection rate remained at 3%. Regarding agreement sentences most relevant to the equipment, we highlight it's a technological and modern equipment. I consider that this equipment will bring about a gain of sustainability for Grupo Boticário. I believe I will have the same quality of the regular product, and I ensure that the olfactory will not be affected. When consumers were asked about what they liked the most in the list regarding the equipment, the compact size was the main point of emphasis. Among the poorly evaluated attributes, the time it takes to refill the bottle was highlighted. In the reseller's demonstration, the overall pleasantness before demonstration was 71%, while 21% of respondents were neutral and 8% rejected the equipment. After demonstration, overall pleasantness increased to 79% and neutrality decreased to 13%. While the rejection rate remained at 8%. What we can see on this slide is that the resellers' acceptance rate is lower than the consumers' acceptance rate. Consequently, the neutrality and rejection rates are higher. Regarding agreement sentences most relevant to the equipment, we highlight it's a technological and modern equipment. Refilling could be carried out by voucher or made at the reseller's place. I believe I will have the same quality of the regular product. The refilled volume is correct. I consider that this equipment will bring about a gain of sustainability for Grupo Boticário. It has practicality, and last but not least, the refilling time is adequate. When resellers were asked about what they liked the most in the list regarding the equipment, the practicality and the compact size were the main points of emphasis. Among the poorly evaluated attributes, the highlight is the manual process to achieve the final volume, the time it takes to refill the bottle, in addition to the design. During the demonstration, consultants operated the equipment as they are the salespeople in the stores. Regarding the most relevant statements such as equipment is easy to operate, there was no waste of bulk, there was no dirt in filling area, and equipment is practical, we can see that all showed high agreement, with an exception for the time for refilling is adequate. Moving to this slide, you can see general feedbacks of demonstration. First one, feedbacks revealed that 86% of consumers expressed willingness to purchase refilled perfume in store. Consumers have indicated that they are willing to pay 21 to 30% less for the refilled fragrance. For resellers, the perception is that 71% of consumers would be willing to purchase refilled perfume, paying 11 to 31% less for this option. When resellers were asked about the motivation for offering the refill option to their consumers, the biggest driver was the sustainability attribute, very close to the sales commission. Building upon the qualitative research finds, abiding the Anvisa legislation, Grupo Boticário has started a pilot project with this pioneering technology in Latin America. And until May 2024, it will be possible to purchase Florata Blue fragrance in bulk at Barra Shopping, Rio de Janeiro. This initiative not only slashes costs, but also contributes to reducing our social environmental footprint. The ESG agenda is ingrained in Grupo Boticário's DNA, which is evident from product development to reverse logistics aimed at packaging recycling. The packaging collected on-site undergoes shredding by recycling cooperatives, later repurposed by Grupo Boticário within the Bote Recicla reverse logistics program, and used for everything from furniture to sustainable stores construction. The process is simple. Consumers bring an empty glass bottle from any Grupo Boticário perfume brand. The consultant places it in the Bote Recicla box. The consumer leaves the store with a freshly filled bottle on the spot, enjoying a 20% financial advantage over the original 75 ml product size. Additionally, a smaller 50 ml size bottle is available. This pilot serves as a barometer for evaluating Brazilian consumer response to sustainable options in perfumery, empowering Grupo Boticário to make informed decisions for the future. There were around 200 people involved in this project, but today I'd like to thank Sabrina from Regulatory Affairs area, Vanessa from Consumer Research, and Clarice, Manager of Strategic Product Innovation. From Aptar, special thanks to Guilherme, Pedro, and Rafael. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me.
Thank you, Franciele. As a lover of perfume, I can see this becoming a much better way to reduce waste and improve circular economy. I'd like to introduce Winnie Muling from Pro Carton, who will be speaking about Pro Carton's topic of rethinking packaging and presenting the results of the consumer study.
Thank you very much for Sustainable Packaging News to invite us for this webinar. We are representing Pro Carton, and today we will be discussing the topic Rethinking Packaging, and we will present to you the results of our latest consumer survey 2024. This survey we did in 5 different countries in Europe. We included Germany, Spain, the UK, Italy, and France. Just a short introduction on Pro Carton. Pro Carton is a European association of the carton and cartonboard manufacturers. We are proud to say that we are combining 95% of the European capacities of cartonboard production. So all the cartonboard you see will be produced inside of Pro Carton members. Our main purpose of Pro Carton, it is to promote the usage of cartonboard as a packaging substrate, and we are very happy to have the opportunity to do so here today. In our consumer survey, we looked at 5,000 different consumers across Europe, 1,000 in each country. And part of the consumer survey was to get a little bit better understanding of the consumer sentiments, what is important for consumers today. And of course, then we also took a little bit of deeper dive on questions, on packaging-related questions. The first question we were asking, what are the biggest issues facing consumers in Europe today? What are the main pain points? What is it that keeps consumers up at night? And as you can see here on the chart, it is a lot about climate change, number 1. The second one, cost of living. And the third one, the warfare. These 3 points by far were the main mentions when it comes to what is consumers keeping up at night. We had a little bit of closer look by country. So on climate change, Italy with 77% has by far the highest score here. Cost of living, that is most on the list for consumers in UK. The warfare in Ukraine, it is very close to consumers in Italy and in Germany. Looking further down the list, points like pandemic that used to be very high in the ranking 2 years ago, it moved all the way down to the last place. It is simply seen as something that is part of the past, part of history. Then we ask the question, how important is a sustainable lifestyle for consumers in Europe? How important is it that you also educate your children in a sustainable way? 62% of European consumers responded here, this is more important, or this is very much more important than it was 2 years ago. That is a very high figure, and that clearly shows that acting in a sustainable way will influence also consumers' purchasing decisions. The highest figure here we had again in Italy with a 71%. The lower figure in Germany and in UK we can also explain by having a very much sustainable mindset already there over the decades in these 2 countries that we saw in previous studies. Then we ask the question, what do you think are the best ways to reduce the negative impact of climate change? And here we had recycling, recycle more as the number 1 position. Consumers also very much recognize the importance of forests, the importance of trees. Number 2 position was plant more trees and use more natural resources. So the link to natural resources, it's very clearly seen here, which we will also see later when it comes to the packaging related questions, that this also plays a major role here. So consumers very much are aware of the importance of recycling and of the importance of planting trees to mitigate the negative impacts of climate change. This top of mind question we put in all our surveys, and the value of this question comes simply from the development over time, over the years. So the question here, if the same product was packaged in 2 different forms of packaging, one was in plastic, one was in cardboard, what is your personal choice? What is your preference? This year, the result we got here was 87%, more than 87% would choose cartonboard over plastics. This, compared to the study in 2022, was another increase of 1% from 86 to 87%. In the study we had before 2022, we came from 81%. So we clearly see this is a continuation of a trend, while we see, of course, now at these levels, we see a leveling out, but 87% preference, that is another increase compared to the 2022 study. On a country level, we see here that Italy again is the number 1 spot with a 92% preference. And we had basically all countries very close to the 90%. We just saw the UK bringing down the average with a lower score of 77%. When we dig a little bit deeper into the age groups, it's very obvious that the older part of the population, the 60 plus and the 45 to 60-year-old, they contributed significantly with the 90% and more preference rate here. The younger ones have more an inclination or an openness towards plastic packaging as well. And the older people get, the more the preference moves towards fiber and the non-fossil related packaging materials. That is another important question that I want the audience to really focus on. In the past 12 months, have you chosen a brand specifically for the packaging used? Meaning, how big is the impact? How big is the importance of packaging for purchasing decision? Here this year, we got the level of 41%. So 4 out of 10 consumers would have changed the brand just because of the packaging used. So packaging plays a major role and in creating brand loyalty, and also, of course, creates a major role at point of sale. At point of sale already, consumers have the end of life in mind when they choose a product. That's very important to remember also for brand owners about the importance of the right packaging in use. And then we digged a little bit deeper and we said, okay, what is it when you are not happy with the packaging that is offered? What are the main points that need to be looked at, that need to be changed? And the key point here, packaging was non-recyclable. 50% told us packaging was non-recyclable, and a further 48% told us that the product and the brand had unnecessary packaging. So overpacking, that is also where consumers react on. They will buy the product once. If they face a disappointing experience, then they will make their decision for a different product the next time. So these 2 points very important here. Product or brands use plastics. That's of course in all the questions that we see. There's a clear preference for fiber-based materials against plastics. That is, I think, an ongoing trend that we see, and that is, I think, nothing new to the audience. Then we ask for the important packaging features. What is important when consumers characterize a packaging material? And here, this year, we had a slight change compared to previous years. Ease of recycling was again the number 1. made from renewable materials was, may I say again, the number 2. We have a new number 3. Number 3 in previous studies was protect the product. And this time it is packaging is resealable, so meaning that keeping the product quality also after opening. This is what moves up in importance. But number 1 and 2 positions, ease of recycling and made from renewable raw materials. Then, of course, when we talk about the importance of recycling, then we also had to add the questions, will consumers really understand what is recyclable? Or is it just that we are moving somewhere in guessing space? Here we have a further increase. 82% of consumers are very well aware of what is recyclable and what is not recyclable. 82%, that is a further increase. We were at 77% in our study 2 years ago. So we see here a further increase in awareness, a further increase in the knowledge about recycling that we can see on consumer side. And also this, of course, is an important message for brand owners to have in mind. Consumers very well understand what packaging they are dealing with. They very well understand what packaging they are buying and they are holding in their hands. And then it's about the trust and confidence level. When we ask the question, how confident are you that the following materials are recycled? Here, I really want to stress the importance on are recycled, not simply are recyclable in theory, but really will find its way in the recycling and come back as new packaging. And with putting the question like this, we had corrugated cardboard and paper and cardboard by far being the number 1. Glass traditionally is known that it comes back as new glass and also rates very high. These 3 packaging materials by far with a distance have the best trust and confidence level on consumers that they will be recycled and will be coming back as new packaging materials. If we look further down the ranks, then of course we see flexible packaging, flexible plastic packaging has the most difficult stand here. Very often consumers are uncertain. How do I deal with this package after use? Will it go in the yellow bin? Will it go in the blue bin? Will it go in the general waste bin? There's a very big level of uncertainty, and this of course will then result in a lower rating that we see here. Maybe also for the audience, I want to put the focus a little bit on the coffee cups. Here we distinguish between paper coffee cups and plastic coffee cups. And also here we saw that the paper coffee cups came out significantly higher with a trust level of 78%, where the plastic coffee cups came back with a trust level of 55%. So also here, consumers make a difference, make a distinction between paper coffee cups and plastic coffee cups. Money talks. That is, of course, also a very important point to look at. This question we asked, how much would you be willing to pay extra for sustainable packaging material? So this is the question, dear consumer, are you willing to take your share of responsibility? And maybe also if it costs you a little bit extra. And here we see the average figure, 5.4%. And here we had a deeper look into the age brackets. And we could clearly see that the consumers, the younger consumers, would come out with an average of 7.5%. The older consumers, once they go to 60 and over, then we drop below 5% on average. That 5% more, paying 5% more for the package if it comes in a sustainable packaging material. That's, of course, we are aware of it. That's a theoretical question. The true decision will be made at point of sale. And here we might see a slightly different decision making, but it's, I think, important also here, the trend remains as it was in previous years. These figures are very much stable over the years and show us that consumers are ready to pay a bit extra if they get a sustainable packaging material delivered. Yeah, and that is just in summary, just a few summarizing slides I want to add on here. Why do we claim, or why are we proud to say that the cartons are leading in circularity? One element, of course, it is a very high recycling rate that we have. 82% is the latest figure we have in Eurostat 2020. 82% recycling rate across countries in Europe. And the industry does not stop here. The industry goes further, tries to raise the bar even higher, and we are targeting to reach 90% by 2030. Then it was a question that we were confronted with: can you really recycle a fiber several times? And you will see in literature, you will sometimes read 5 times, 7 times. We made the laboratory research. We went together with the Technical University in Graz in Austria. And the results we got were that the fibers, cartonboard fibers, are a lot more resilient than we ever thought they would be. So the reply here was minimum 25 times. 25 times is not the limit that you can recycle a paper fiber without that it does not make any negative impact on the mechanical stability of the fiber. And this is these two elements: a high recycling rate and the technical ability of the fiber to be recycled several times. These two elements together combine that we can say that we take a leadership in circularity. And not only for the past 3, 4, 5 years, our industry has been circular for the past generations, for the past decades. When we talk about circularity, we are proud to say that each and every folding carton that leaves our factories carries circularity inside. And part of circularity, of course, is how do we treat, how do we deal with the raw materials we are using. And that is where sustainable forest management comes in play. And sustainable forest management is top of the agenda for all our members, for all our cartonboard and folding carton producers. More than 93% of the wood fibers we use come from EU forests. We are not using any material that comes from rainforests. And we can also truly say that an element of sustainable forest management is also secure. Yes, you harvest the trees, but then you also do a reforestation. You also make sure that you plant new trees, and this together will then lead to the result that we can proudly say in Europe, forests are growing at a rate of 2% year on year. And that is a very positive contribution that is related to the sustainable forest management. When it comes to the environmental impact, then of course carbon footprint plays a major role. And we do big surveys every 3 years where we look at the entire supply chain of cartonboard. And this basically includes that we start at the pulping stage, then we move to the cartonboard producing industry, and we also look at the folding carton industry and look at the end of life of cartonboard. And here we are proud to say that in the last study we did, including figures from 2018 to 2021, we reduced our CO2 emissions cradle to grave by 24%. That is a true substantial reduction, and all our members are working on a further improvement in this area. Finally, of course, we want to get as close as possible to net zero, as close as possible to get there. We can say that some of the mills in Scandinavia, some of the new mills in Scandinavia are already producing carbon neutral. They are producing more energy that they can support neighboring villages with power in order to heat their houses and provide energy for their houses. That is very clearly part of our mission. That is very clearly part of our genes, that we want to get to carbon neutral production as close as possible and as fast as possible. This is the summary of our short presentation. We can truly say that the cartonboard is future ready, and we are future ready today. You will find more information on our website, www.procarton.com. You can also approach me. You find my email address here on the slide. Please get back to me with any questions you might have on sustainable packaging. I will be very happy to get back to you with our answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Winnie, for that video. It's interesting to see the results of the consumer study along with the best way to reduce climate change. Our last speaker is Zhanar, who will be talking about strategies to tackle reusable packaging adoption barriers.
Hello to everyone. Today I would like to share with you my views on how to tackle barriers for reusable packaging adoption. I am Zhanar Baishakova, an entrepreneur and a coach with a passion for design sustainably. My career spans over 29 years in the fast-moving consumer goods industry, where I have built my experience in multiple disciplines, such as innovation, operations, and supply chain. In the past 7 years, my focus has shifted to innovation in sustainable packaging materials and technologies. I'm also proud to have been recognized last year with a prestigious award as a Mentor of the Year at the Startup Accelerator Mass Challenge. In this role, I've had the privilege of mentoring green tech startups, whose focus was to develop next generation of sustainable materials and technology. One of those startups was a reusable packaging startup, Get More. And since then, I have been researching key learnings from other multiple pilots and looking for best practices. In the past decade, we've seen a sharp increase in packaging waste per capita in Europe, reaching 189 kilograms in 2021 alone. If this trend continues, we are on track to surpass 200 kilograms of waste per capita annually by 2030. The European Union has set new targets in packaging waste directives to both reduce packaging waste volumes and to achieve 100% recycling of all packaging by 2030 and 100% recycling of plastic by 2035. Yet, despite the push for circular economy, reusable packaging remains at less than 2%. Let's review together what is holding back the adoption of reusable packaging. Before we get to the strategies, let's classify those challenges into 3 core areas and understand the underlying reasons behind each of them. First, consumer adoption. As consumers, we all appreciate the little conveniences in life and, understandably, think twice about extra costs. The success of reusable and refillable packaging highly depends on consumer willingness to return containers by post or to the point of sale. Yet, in spite of awareness of sustainability impact, consumers are not ready to sacrifice convenience and on-the-go shopping rituals. Second, packaging safety and costs. Maintaining hygiene and food safety standards is another most critical aspect, especially for reusable packaging that must be food grade and free from contamination. Such requirements lead to higher cost of reverse logistics, cleaning and sanitizing costs, and the cost of carbon emissions from transportation. Also, to ensure reusability, packaging should be made from high-strength materials such as durable plastic and metals, which are more expensive than single-use flexible plastic or carton packaging. And lastly, new supply chain create complexities and require high investment in the new business models to achieve not only efficient collection, cleaning, and sorting at scale, but also to incentivize consumers to adopt new shopping habits. So there are 3 groups of challenges requires business commitment and significant efforts to make sustainable packaging viable. Let's take a closer look into the first challenge, which is consumer convenience, to analyze existing reusable packaging models so we can understand which one has better chances to change consumer habits. There are 2 main packaging systems, refillable and returnable packaging. Refillable packaging can be refilled at home and at point of sales and does not require reverse logistics managed by businesses. It is up to consumer to manage the refill. The refillable at home is the most adopted model used in cosmetics, soaps, and shampoo that allows consumers to refill their containers at home. Its advantages include reduced packaging waste and cost savings. However, the downside of this model is that as a consumer, you still generate a single-use packaging waste even with less material. In short, higher convenience, but higher environmental impact as well. Next, refillable at point of sales packaging, where consumers can replenish their containers directly in stores. This approach maximizes packaging waste reduction and allows consumers buy in quantities that suit their needs. The drawback is dependency on refill availabilities at stores and at scale, and consumer willingness to carry their own containers to store. This model has been tested by Unilever with key takeaways. It creates a lot of inconvenience for consumers and requires a strong financial incentive such as price discount. Returnable by post model offers convenience by allowing consumers to return used packages by post. This system is often backed by incentives, but relies heavily on efficient reverse logistics to keep carbon footprint and costs low. Lastly, the returnable to point of sales option invites consumers to bring packaging back to the store. It's ideal for quick and efficient turnover, but can be hindered by inconveniences of carrying empty containers and the need for on-site cleaning facilities. Each model presents a different approach to reducing waste with varying degrees of convenience and cost implication. Let's have a look into Loop case study, where company has tested both returnable approaches with several key learnings. Since 2019, Loop pilot has shown that this is a viable circular economy model. 80% of Loop packaging is returned within 60 days, and its system has nearly 20% lower environmental impact by the 10th use cycle. However, it was not an easy ride with many challenges and pivots to make it work. Back in January 2019, Loop has piloted the e-commerce channels with renowned businesses like Procter & Gamble, Nestlé, PepsiCo, Unilever, Mars, Coca-Cola, Mondelez, and Danone. Consumers could order goods from the Loop or a partner's website and have them delivered like traditional products ordered online. Customer would pay a small deposit for a package that has been designed for 100 or more user cycle. After use, customers would place it in a tote for pickup by post. In some cases, can bring it to retailer. They could choose whether they want the product replenished. If not, their deposit is returned or credited to their account. The empty containers were sent to facilities where they were washed and refilled. In 2021, Loop has pivoted from e-commerce to retail channels because the reuse system needed scale and efficient execution, which was difficult to achieve through online operations alone. Tesco's trial with Loop indicated that significant customer education was needed, and extra packaging cost has likely impacted consumer participation. A large-scale deployment suggested to be around 1,000 stores was needed for profitability, and standardized packaging rather than brand-specific designs was advised to reduce logistical complexity and costs. So let's sum up the learnings. To promote changes in customer behavior, businesses have to establish easily accessible return points. This should be placed in convenient locations to motivate customers to participate in the return and refill systems and make sustainable living a viable option rather than a chore. Making return and refill stations as a common sight in the stores helps to make reusing packaging a standard practice, which aligns with existing shopping habits and consumer trends. Educating consumers is another crucial point. By sharing clear information about negative effects of disposable packaging and the advantages of reusable, we empower them to choose wisely. Technology also plays a vital role, especially in mobile application development. Introducing smart packaging with QR codes or RFID and user-friendly apps provides a fun way for customers to track their eco-friendly activities and see real-world impact in their choices. Offering reward for choosing sustainable packaging is an effective strategy for businesses. This approach builds customer loyalty and reinforces the company commitment to the environment. Second barrier, safety and packaging cost, is also complex but not impossible to overcome. It starts with a design concept which has to be both cost-efficient and standing the test of time and use. Durability means longevity and consecutive use of more than 10 times, but also repairability or reduced need for complete replacement. It should also not be only offering consumers an effortless experience in both use and reuse, but also easy to clean to keep operating costs in check. Lastly, scalability implies automation, robotization, and packaging standardization to reduce complexity and the cost. Be prepared to make a compromise on uniqueness of packaging design for each product line. On the financial side, while there is return on investment in the long term, but to make it also attractive short term, companies can adopt a collaborative approach to sharing cost with value chain partners. Firstly, being transparent on the environmental cost of single-use packaging with consumers in comparison to reduced tangible benefits on carbon footprint savings, and one-off price increase element. Secondly, material suppliers have to be engaged from the very beginning to co-develop over time more cost-efficient material, leveraging innovation and R&D resources. Also, businesses should not exclude collaboration with local authorities and actively pursue subsidies and tax incentive to reward sustainable practices. These three financial strategies will mitigate financial burden and will not only be favorable for your bottom line, but also support environmental commitment for businesses, consumers, and local community. Building new infrastructure can be a daunting task, but to dream big, start small. Sometimes it's enough to leverage external network and resources like local startups, authorities, and local eco-centric organizations. Engaging with local partners can collectively mitigate the infrastructure overhead. Also, do not underestimate collaboration through digital platforms to enhance coordination and participation from various supply chain participants, leading to more streamlined operations. If needed, invest in flexible and expandable cleaning and refilling system that efficiently balance expenses and respond to market needs. Utilize automation to refine the processes involved in cleaning and the management of return logistics. You also can formulate a service framework where consumers do not buy packaging, but rather lease to distribute extra cost over a period of time. There are multiple ways how to create a collaborative environment, and you may be surprised how many parties will be willing to help you to overcome all those challenges to implement your vision. If you consider transitioning your packaging from single-use to refill and return model, I recommend leveraging insights from existing pilot projects to understand the financial dynamics. It's crucial to design a strategy that ensures affordability for consumers and maintain profitability for your business. If you require assistance in developing a robust business case, do not hesitate to reach out. I am at your disposal to provide support.
That's great. Thank you so much, Zhanar, for the insight into this issue and how we can tackle the problem. That comes to the end of our Circular Economy Conference. I would like to thank all of our speakers for contributing to our conference, and I would also like to thank all of our viewers. If you want any more information about sustainable packaging, please head over to our website and subscribe to our newsletter.